Practicing medicine has many rewards, but it also has its challenges. And physicians face the same challenges as any other entrepreneur or business owner. Sharing her experiences as an innovative physician entrepreneur is Dr. Tracei Ball, founder of OnCall Mobile Medical and Wellness. Dr. Ball is triple board certified in internal medicine, pediatrics, and addiction medicine, and she provides house calls in the metropolitan area of Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm Dr. Jennifer Caudle, host of Everyday Family Medicine on ReachMD, and I'd like to welcome Dr. Tracei Ball. Welcome to ReachMD.
Thank you so much for having me today, Dr. Caudle.
Well, I'm really excited that you're here because I think that physicians who have gone out and started businesses and who are entrepreneurs, I think it's fascinating, and I think there's so much that we can all learn from your experiences. I guess I first wanted to learn a little bit more about why you decided to practice medicine in the way that you practice medicine, and why did you decide to transition from traditional practice to your mobile practice?
Medicine has always been in my heart. It's something that's been there since I was around 3 years old. I was a young girl who was bandaging up teddy bears and doing surgery when other little girls are probably pinning pigtails on their dolls and their teddy bears. So medicine has been something that's always been in my heart. And after finishing residency, I knew that I wanted to eventually start my own practice and move into something different. And when opportunity came up for me to make that move, I just decided to take that space and that time and move forward with something different, something that I had kind of sat down and created in my head, and I just wanted to take it from paper to actually happening.
Sure. Well, can you describe to us, can you give us a little insight into what was in your head and what was the practice that you envisioned and what it is now? How do you practice? What is it? Explain it to us.
Well, OnCall Mobile Medical and Wellness is a mobile medical practice, and what we do is we basically take the medicine to the patient, and that's in their home, their office, or, any other setting that's safe for us to do so. The goal is to provide convenience for the patient, and it's also given us the opportunity to bring down some of the level of anxiety that they may have about being in the traditional setting. And it's also about being able to really monitor and look at their environment. And the goal is to take that information and create a wellness program or sense of wellness around all the information that we have.
That's really interesting. So your patients then, this is a question I have in particular is, do you have a concierge practice or do you accept insurance or, how does that piece work? Is it just like having a practice in a physical office that patients would come to you except you go to them? Can you speak a little bit to that?
We're actually a fusion. When I started to research different types of new models of medicine that were out there, I came across a few different models. One was the micro practice model in which you strip down the number of staff, you remove some of the traditional elements that are there, and then you apply technology so that you increase the access to patients with working with a smaller amount of staff. And so we're micro-practice in that structure. And then I added the other component of direct fee, where we've removed the insurance element, and that we have a direct relationship between our patients and the physician. And so that the goal is to that traditional doctor-patient relationship that was there that's been strained by traditional medicine right now. The goal was to restore that. And so we're kind of a fusion of the micro-practice, direct fee structure.
Interesting. What are some of the locations? You did mention that sometimes you'll visit patients at their home, their work. Do you ever travel to see patients if they are traveling? Or, what's the extent of, going out to see your patients? And do you always go to see them, or do they sometimes come to see you?
We do have a small number of those who come to see us. The reason for that is that we have some people who have interest in this type of care, but they live further than our traveling distance. And so we have actually people who come in an hour and a half, 2 hours travel time to come into the office for a visit. Traditionally, most of those are going to be people that we travel out to see. And it can be people who are traveling into the city. We get calls from hotels, people who may have missed their medication, people who have developed a sickness while traveling and they need some travel medicine assistance. We have those who are in the home. That's going to be busy professionals who don't want to take time off of work or miss half a day of work. And so we're able to go out to their home, even sometimes before they leave for work, thus saving them a day off. Also, we have parents of small children. They really like this type of service because we can go in, we can see the entire family in one stop instead of having to go to more than one medical practice if everyone is sick in the home. wide variety of patients who actually use the service. We also have patients who are caretakers. They have someone who's disabled or who's elderly, and it's hard to get those folks out of the home. And so we're able to go in and provide care without them having to worry about that barrier of getting someone out of the home and who has mobility issues.
That's very interesting.
So it's a variety of settings that we'll go into for a variety of reasons.
Right, right. I'm sure that you did a lot of research and you talked a little bit about this as you were establishing your practice. How unique is your practice? Are there many models like this that you know of that exist, or is this something quite rare? You mentioned sort of being a hybrid and a mix of different type of practice models. Can you speak to that?
I don't know of any practice that's exactly like OnCall. I did have the fortunate benefit of seeing other models that were out there. I did have the opportunity to talk to a small number of doctors. There aren't a lot in my area or that I knew of at that time when I was starting to kind of mirror after or to kind of get some information on getting the groundwork to get started. I've been at this about 2.5 years now. So fortunately, I see a growing number of doctors who are moving into these models and kind of creating and carving out new niches of medicine. So my hope is that this will continue to be a trend because patients are really desiring this type of treatment. And as physicians, we're getting the opportunity to practice medicine in a whole new way, and we're getting back to some of the basics of that doctor-patient relationship that we've kind of been starving for over the years.
That's interesting. If you're just tuning in right now, you're listening to ReachMD. I'm your host, Dr. Jennifer Caudle, and I'm speaking with Dr. Tracei Ball, founder of OnCall Mobile Medical and Wellness. She practices in the metropolitan area of Charlotte, North Carolina, and provides house calls. So let's continue this dialogue, Dr. Ball, about your practice. And, what I want to know is, from your perspective, just before a break, you said something like it kind of allows physicians to get back to the basics and the things that we love about medicine. What is it that you love about this particular model of practicing medicine, which you've been doing for about 2.5 years?
Well, one of my goals was to create total wellness, and we focus on 5 aspects of health. That's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and financial health. And so our approach is a whole body, whole mind type approach. I don't believe in just treating components of a person. It needs to be a total picture that we're focusing on. So with this model, with this thought process, I'm able to take more time with patients. So instead of, that 10, 15 minutes that we may have in traditional settings, we're able to take much more time. It may take an hour. It may take 2 hours to see a patient. So we're getting more information, and then we'll be able to give more direction to them so they can take that. And what we do is we create wellness plans around that. So I really like being able to have the time to sit down with patients. It also gives me the time to really think, to really process, and really to study. I have more time down to research conditions, research information that may benefit my patients. So I really enjoy that aspect. And then we create a better relationship so that they're more forthcoming and that they're more open to trying different modalities because we're integrative. So it's not just traditional Western medicine, but we're able to implement other aspects of health and medicine that are out there now.
That's very interesting. So philosophically and in many other ways, you feel, it sounds like, that you're able to practice the way that you believe. What are some of the drawbacks, or what have been some of the challenges that you faced in establishing this practice? Again, as I mentioned in the introduction, I really wanted to do this interview with you because I really admire physician entrepreneurs, but I also sometimes feel as though, being a physician, I don't always feel like I understand some of the business sides of things. So what are some of the drawbacks or challenges you faced, and how did you get around them, and how did you navigate any hurdles you came across?
Well, I think one of the drawbacks is that there's no blueprint for this type of practice. And as any physician who's also an entrepreneur, you're kind of often craving and carving out your own idea. And so there may not be anything for you to follow necessarily initially. And that's often what happens with any disruptor in any type of industry. So I think that was probably one of the great challenges, is there wasn't necessarily anyone or anything that I can correctly follow to get to establishing OnCall. One of the other drawbacks is that it's a very slow grow. So you really have to be determined and push through those times when it may not be going as expected. We all create business plans, but we have to understand that the business plan is just kind of a guideline, and it may constantly change. And so we have to kind of learn to adapt. And that's one of the things I had to overcome is oftentimes as physicians, we want something to go a certain way. We have a certain plan or desire for an outcome, and it just may not happen that way. So we have to really allow ourselves to be pliable if we're going to go into different models of medicine.
Right. That's interesting. Talk to us a little bit about your support system or any mentors or groups, organizations that you consulted along the way. What has been your support system through this process of establishing your business and even now?
Thank you so much for asking that. One of the things that I learned when I was prior to starting the business is that I did a lot of classes in business entrepreneurship. And one of the great things that I learned from those who had already established something is that you have to have a great team with you, that you can't do it by yourself. And that's the thing is I've been able to build a great team around me. I have a wonderful mentor who pushes me, who keeps me on track, and we keep in contact. And they help keep me focused on that vision and that goal that I have for my business. I've been able to find such a wonderful support system with other physicians who are willing to talk openly and share not only their positive winning factors, but also their failures. And I think that's the thing is that we don't talk about failures a lot. Again, as physicians, it's hard to fail, but I think we really need to focus on that because anytime there's failure, there's opportunity to learn, there's opportunity to grow. And so I've had a wonderful support system of people around me, other physicians, family, friends, mentors who have stuck by me and helped me through this. I think another great thing to have on your team, have a great lawyer on your team, a great accountant. I have a wonderful CPA who has helped keep me on track and work through a lot of the business aspects that we don't learn about in medical school. Lastly, I'd like to add that one of the greatest supports I've had is my faith. I feel like this vision was given to me by God. So I would say that that's one of the greatest factors that's really kept me strong through this process, and that would be my faith. So it's those components, those persons on the part of my team, I call them my board, as part of my board, have really helped push and support me through this. I'm eternally grateful for them to be there and help me through this process.
Right. No, I can completely understand that. I think that makes a lot of practical sense. We go through medical training, medical school, and we have mentors. We have people who we look up to and who help us along the way. And it makes perfect sense that you've had that same experience with starting your practice. We just have a couple of minutes left. I really find your story and what you're doing very, very inspiring and very interesting and also very courageous. I think sometimes it's hard to step out of a box that maybe we're not very familiar with. And I think it's fantastic that you've set a goal for how you want to practice and you're living that dream. And I think that's very inspiring. Do you have, in the last minute or so, do you have any words of advice for any physicians who may be considering starting their own practice or doing house calls or interested in a model like yours? What advice would you give those who are listening?
Well, I would encourage anyone who really has a dream and a vision in their heart to pursue it. Again, it's not going to be necessarily an easy route, but we've made it to the point where we made it through medical school, we made it through residency, we made it through some tough times, some long hours, multiple board certifications, multiple tests that we've had to do, and then just looking at the amount of continuing education and all those things that we have to do now. So we're already people who are set up to overcome and achieve. So I would just encourage anyone who has a desire to start doing the research, start taking business courses, looking at classes to pursue their dream. There's no limit to anything that you want to do. We limit ourselves a lot of times. And I think within the traditional system, you almost kind of get put into a box. So I think it's a great opportunity for people to start looking now, if they want to have longevity in medicine, to look outside of the traditional settings and start finding careers, start finding businesses, and step out there and not to be afraid. It's just rewarding. I would never want to go back to the settings that I was in before. absolutely love what I'm doing now. And I know that I'm really doing something beneficial for my patients. And so that helps me to wake up every morning and get started and get going. And it doesn't bother me to hinder me to work those long hours because I know that people are benefiting from it. So I would encourage them just to follow their dreams and go for it.
That's great advice. Dr. Ball, thank you. This has been fantastic. Is there a website for your practice or for you that if people want to read more about your story or your practice that they can go to?
Yes, they can follow our website information at www.oncallmobilemedical.com.
Okay, great. Many thanks to our guest, Dr. Tracei Ball, founder of OnCall Mobile Medical and Wellness. I'm your host, Dr. Jennifer Caudle. You've been listening to ReachMD. To download this podcast and others in the series, please visit reachmd.com/everyday family medicine. Thank you so much for listening.